Hello there and welcome to your current affairs program In Depth. My name is Justin Matlatla. And today on this episode, we are joined via Skype by the director and regional chair of the African Union Youth Club. That's Shamil Tumisang Agos as we celebrate Africa Day. Now, Africa Day is an annual commemoration on May 25 of the 1963 founding of the Organization of African Unity, which has since given birth to its own successor, the African Union, and that took place in 2002. In 1991, the OAU established the African Economic Community. And of course, on the 25th of May in 1963, presidents of the 30 of the then independent African states signed the African founding charter of the African Union that was in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Now, Shamil, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and good day to the people.
Okay. What does Africa Day mean to you as a young person?
Africa Day for us as young people is a day in which we basically reflect on the achievement of African Union and Africa as a people. From the day we got our celebration, and also we take this time to basically reflect and look at what we need to do as young people to make Africa a better place, and to make sure that we are also participants in attaining the Africa that we want.
Mm-hmm. And now today, or 2020 rather, is the 57th anniversary of the founding of the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. Do you think Africans have succeeded in developing their economies to become Afro-centered and also to adopting homegrown solutions to their challenges?
In terms of course, going 100%, I would say we have done our best in terms of building our infrastructure, and in terms of development. There's quite a lot of move on the empowerment of young people who actually comprise of a hugest of a population. But most importantly, we see quite a lot of commitment by our regional body, that being the SADC Secretariat, when we want to bring it here to Southern Africa. But also even the African Union have reiterated quite a number of times towards developing its people. I mean, we also see this commitment by the vision of Africa, that being the Agenda 2063, as we know that is the 50-year plan in which we are actually trying to look at where we are coming from as Africa, and just going forward, what is it that the Africa that we aspire to see. And that commitment we've seen also the African Union heads of state going forth by coming up with 10-year implementation plan, by which we see the African Continental Free Trade Agreement being one of those 10-year plans. That we're actually looking at making sure that Africans take up the narrative, and that they are at the forefront of developing industries in Africa, and that we as Africans, we consume what we produce, and that we actually make what we produce. So that directly challenges the perspectives that we've had previously, that Africans do not consume what they make. I mean, they consume what they do not make, and cannot make what they consume.
Now we want to go to where you stand now as a young person. You are the founding director of the African Union Youth Club and also its ambassador. Tell us more about what exactly gave you the idea to create or to form this club.
Thank you so much for that question. As I was growing up, I've always wanted to be a part of the greater Africa. And I think this was basically based on the fact that I've always been an empath as a young person. And, you know, seeing the ills that some of the colleagues in Africa were going through, I could not help but just want to do something about that case. And seeing the wars and the uncertainties and the ills that are happening around me, I just realized that, you know what, I cannot keep silent. But then I actually mobilized my peers to make sure that we contribute towards the Africa that we want to see. And therefore, that was the birth of the African Union Youth Club. It's a club that is established in all Southern Africa member states, and we are looking at curbing and ensuring that young people are participants in the Africans' development agenda by mobilizing stakeholders and ensuring that we consolidate all efforts of youth development stakeholders to make sure that at the end of the day, young people are part and parcel of the decision-making processes. And so, by so doing, we have, yes, sir?
How far have you gone in this endeavor?
We have, like I said, we have actually done quite a lot in terms of mobilizing stakeholders. We've partnered with the SADC Secretariat. We've partnered with youth development stakeholders at national levels. We work very closely with national youth councils in our different countries. And as the youth ourselves, we've come up with a frontier to make sure that we are connected wherever we are, by engaging the scholars, that being the youth, by engaging young people who are experts, by engaging unemployed youth, by engaging youth who basically feel like they don't belong in the community, and bring all of us together to make sure that we come up with solutions that are evidence-based and that addresses the real-day challenges of young people.
Now, of course, Africa has a lot of youths. We can call them the demographic dividend that is readily available in terms of skills, capacity, and so forth. Do you think that the youth themselves understand the need for them to step in and to be participants, whether it's in economic productivity, whether it's in politics, and so forth? In your interactions with the youth, how ready or how prepared are they to step in and cover that gap?
The young people are very much ready. The young people are willing, and the young people are eager to be given a space to also take part in decision making. But the only thing that is quite lacking is in capacitation, as we know. And in capacitation, we can talk about lack of training, and this is actually why most of the leaders, they would say that they can't give young people a space to lead because young people are inexperienced. But the question that we always ask as young people is, if you do not give us the opportunity to try and the opportunity to actually grow, how else are we going to gain that experience as young people? So usually we see quite a lot of excuses around youth development and all that, and mainly simply because we often do not have participatory structures to make sure that young people are part and parcel of the big spaces and decision-making processes. That not all is lost, though. As African Union Youth Club, we've actually been given this space by the SADC Secretariat. Just quite a year ago in 2018, I was one of those young people who was quite privileged to actually address the ministers of energy and water on issues of young people regarding those two sectors. We had the opportunity also to give to the ministers youth submissions, and this was drawn from experts and drawn from young people in the sectors, and telling us basically what it is that they want to see happen in those sectors. And quite often we actually are engaged with the SADC Secretariat to be at the table, to influence our policy decisions and all that, even at the national levels. But there's much that needs to be done in terms of continuous review and assessment of the situation of young people, and ensuring that we employ evidence-based solutions to make sure that the decisions that we are making and that the solutions that we are drafting are actually addressing the needs of young people real time.
Now, what's your assessment, Shamil, with regards to the inclusion of women in decision-making positions across the continent?
To be quite honest, there's quite a lot of effort that needs to go in there. And first of all, I think that there's quite a huge need for us to make sure that the culture, we change the culture. As you know, there's quite a lot of cultural errors. I would like to call it cultural errors today, because we are that naturally, a woman is sidelined and marginalized, by the society, by the community. And for a woman to actually stand up to the position of power, even the women themselves usually challenge that. They usually challenge that stance. And coming also from the men, we also see men also feeling intimidated by having women at the table. I mean, when we go to churches, quite a number of our people still don't believe that they can have a woman as a pastor. And when it goes to chieftaincy, when it comes to hereditary chieftaincy, we usually see that only the male child is the one that is entitled to taking up being an heir, to the throne. But these things, they need us to now start reflecting and seeing a woman as an equal in the society to a man. And I'm not saying that we should feel sorry for women and just give them power. No. It should be based on equity and equality, meaning that if a woman is able to perform it, we need to give her a chance to prove herself. And then if a woman is willing and has the power and the right credentials to perform it, we need to give them a chance, and we need to support. From the smallest of our communities, being in the churches, being in the family, we need to start building a culture that sees a woman as an equal in the community.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Agenda 2063, and it includes the tag that says leaving no one behind. Now, when we talk of leaving no one behind, usually the vulnerable come into play. Particularly those with disabilities. How are you ensuring within your organization that people with disabilities are not excluded from this agenda?
Thank you so much. And what we've done is that within the African Union Youth Club, we have different portfolios. And one of those critical portfolios of ensuring inclusion is that we have an arm that basically it looks at the disabled youth in our society. And for that, we have actually come up with an arm that basically influences some of the decisions that, not some, but all of the decisions that we're making. We make sure that they are inclusive of this demographic that, or this community that we're talking about. So we do have representatives of disabled people in our leadership.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we are faced with the coronavirus pandemic across the region and throughout the world. What do you think is the way forward for Africa in terms of containing this pandemic?
In terms of containing the pandemic, I think that Africa, we need to do much in terms of, contact tracing. It can be very difficult for member states to actually ensure that we trace everybody else who is coming in and out of our country and who they're coming in contact with, especially if somebody has been infected or has been exposed to somebody who was infected. But most importantly, I will implore all Africans to actually make sure that we take this pandemic as serious as we possibly can, and following the guidelines that were given by the World Health Organization and the precautionary measures that are continuously reiterated by our media and our member states, to make sure that we keeping ourselves safe and keeping the next person safe. But also, while we're at it, I will implore young people who are technologically savvy, who have the solutions at hand, and who have even created prototypes to come forth and help the member states and help our government in fighting this pandemic. If it means that we need to come up with technological solutions that can assist our member states in contact tracing, please let us come forward with those decisions. And I will also urge our member states, our government, to make sure that they support and celebrate young people who are assisting in this critical time.
Shamil, your last words to the young people of Africa as we celebrate Africa Day.
Pan-Africanism, I want everybody else to see it as a gift and to see it as our own identity. And I would like for young people to embrace Africanism. I would like for young people to start looking inside Africa for solutions and to implore to do something about the status quo, and that everybody else must take Africa's development as their personal agenda. It has to start with everybody else believing that indeed Africa can change, and indeed Africa is changing, and indeed there's something that we can do individually and collectively.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, Shamil.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And hello to the people of Zimbabwe. And my final words is please take care and follow the guidelines as we all take caution in during the COVID pandemic.
Perfect. Well, that was Shamil Tumisang Agos, the founding director of the African Union Youth Club. Join us again on another edition of In Depth as we talk more of what's happening around us. Bye-bye.